So it is my pleasure to bring up, can we get Manifest and Sarsen funds to come on up? Yeah, so while we're waiting for Eric to come up, Eric demonstrated graciousness and when I first came into the first decentralized AI event happened in Austin in December of 2023. And I met this guy with a big long beard, and this guy actually took me under his wing and said hey, let's go grab some sushi and let's talk. He kind of laid out the land of hey, this is how the decentralized area works. Here's things to look out for. He helped me get connected. Last year, I think he probably helped me meet 20 or 30 people that were kind of the beginning of this. And so shout out, Eric, I've been saying good things about you while you've been coming out. So this is Eric, he's awesome. And this is Sarsen Funds, and welcome up. And Taco is legendary. Have you ever seen conference passes like this? He's everywhere, so welcome, y'all.
When you said that beard, I thought you were either talking about me or you, man.
Cheers.
Hello, everyone. My name is Player One Taco. I am the CDO of Manifest AI, Manifest Network. We got a great panel today. Following the steps of the panel just before us, it's been an amazing day all the way around. We have Eric and we have John sort of to talk about what Sarsen's Fund is doing, what Manifest is doing, and we're going to sort of roll into just letting you know who we are and what we've done. Eric, take it away. Who are you and what are you doing?
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eric Breivik, CEO of the Lifted Initiative. We created the Manifest AI Network. I'm 35 years in AI now, getting up there. I'm actually a neuroscientist, and so my whole bent on my career has been the journey to AI, and ultimately AGI, ASI. So, I'm taking my entire look at decentralization has been from this angle, and so that's my passion here.
Yeah. John.
Hello, my name is John Sarsen. I'm the CEO of Sarsen Funds. Sarsen Funds, we run crypto-focused hedge funds. We help bring traditional capital into the blockchain space. Some of my team is in the back of the room, some of my investment team. They are really sharp and well-versed in AI and decentralization. We have been seeing that when baby boomer investors, who sadly control most of the investable assets for institutions, look to buy into the future of AI. They're buying Facebook, Amazon, Google, NVIDIA, and it's not supporting emerging ecosystems. It's not supporting anyone in this room, really. What it's actually doing is it's consolidating power in a handful of companies that have not demonstrated themselves to be good stewards of that power. And also, I think that mega cap companies tend to not outperform innovative startups. So what we do is we connect capital to early stage blockchain companies. We're partnered with the Manifest Network to make sure, under Eric's advice, that we understand who is on the right side of the trade when it comes to the long-term vision and the importance of decentralization and sovereignty in the growth of the AI sector.
Now, one of the things that we've talked about a lot in the Morpheus ecosystem are the 4 C's: code, capital, compute, and a lot of people have been using the term builder today, but it's also community. And so one of the things that we've talked about, John, in the background is people's view of the VC in old DeFi and the new and upcoming, as we've been doing a race to the bottom, it seems like, in the PvP situation we are in now. And one of the things that you were talking about being open to was hearing from the community. Could you sort of talk on that a little bit?
Gladly. So the player versus player, the zero-sum game that is blockchain companies competing against other blockchain companies for capital is not as productive as blockchain companies figuring out a way to collectively align and stack and then bring in fresh capital away from the tech giants that are the existential threat to everyone in the room. So as we get better and better at telling the story about the importance of decentralized compute, we'll raise more and more money to be able to feed to projects in this ecosystem. We want to write a check to every company in this ecosystem so that collectively we start to become very important and unstoppable. And Eric's gotten in my head just how dystopian a future would be that doesn't have decentralized access to compute, and like how that is a real recipe for a disaster and a world where very few companies have all the control.
Now, one of the things that I'm sure a lot of all of you have seen is the conversations that Mikey and Jesse have when they're on walks, and they talk about a lot of deep stuff sometimes. That's one of the things that I love, I get to do with my boss as well, Eric, and we actually started recording some of this stuff there, and yesterday we had a conversation around the difference of supporting communities in both a bull market and a bear market. And can you sort of talk on how Manifest works to support ecosystems and projects in both the bear and bull?
Yeah, so there's a fundamentally different set of forces in a bear versus a bull market. We've been through a few of them now, so we've seen these forces. Manifest is a number of things. It's a network that you all can deploy things to and interact with, but it's also a swap fund. It's a token treasury. We use that in a bear market to collect up projects that have value but can't raise any money, right? Because in a bear market, projects get really, really hard up. We trade positions in their companies and their future token launches for our index token in our fund. Our index token in our fund can be traded for compute time on our network. So we kept hundreds of projects alive during the last bear market that are now great projects on our network, because when the market recovers, they can now raise money, they can now do all sorts of things, their valuation comes up, our fund valuation comes up, and everybody wins. But it's the relationship between the tokenomics of the network itself and how the network spend works, and the index fund of all the value of all the other tokens in the projects that keep that alive. In a bear market, we invest in startups. In a bull market, we cash out on that valuation and then get ready for the next bear market. So we saved over 100 projects last bear market. A bear market will come again. We hope we can save 1,000 this time, right?
And that's one of the things that we're doing with MFX, which is our index token, is it's almost like our version of AWS credits, because we are a persistent enterprise-grade compute system. And that, I sound like I repeat that over and over again. But I've actually gotten to visit some of our data centers around the world, which it's not a node program in the actual sense of like something at home. It's an enterprise solution. If you're wanting to compete with AWS in a decentralized manner, you have to have enterprise-grade hardware. So, John, where have you seen companies shifting and like the money shifting into a more decentralized, and how are you selling that?
That's a good question. So when we are looking at an AI project or a gaming project or a number of different workflow automation projects, like, we worry about their ability to not be squashed if they start getting on the wrong side of the powers that control compute. So when we see a company that's thinking about these things and thinking about, how do we make sure that our access to compute creates a glide path or a path forward for the long-term growth plans of our company, like, that's where the Manifest Network comes in. We want to see companies thinking about big tech as being potentially adversarial in the very near future, especially as they get more successful and they're competing against something that's for sale in the App Store, or they're competing against an AI agent from Google. There's a lot of ways that the people that control your servers can vampire your data, your users, your workflows, your business model without breaking any parts of their contracts with you. We like it when projects are thinking about how do we create a sustainable compute plan for our company.
Now, you touched on something of like big data owning parts of stuff. Eric, we've talked a little bit about the difference between ownership and control and what that sort of means at a user aspect. Could you sort of deep dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think this is one of my kind of pet peeves with the decentralized ecosystem. Like maybe I'll cause a little trouble here. Those of you who know me know I like to cause a little bit of trouble in every talk that I give. We talk a lot in this community about alignment and control of AI systems. We talk a lot about data ownership. We talk a lot about, these types of concepts. I'd like to introduce some crisper language around these concepts. For example, there's a lot of confusion between ownership and control. The most powerful people and organizations in the world control far more than they own, right? So people get worried about this. They say, well, I own that, but I can show you how you don't control it, right? So the access is really control, not ownership. The similar thing when we talk about AI alignment. I have a lot of people, and again, 35 years in the space, I've had countless conversations about alignment of AI systems. Alignment misses the point. Alignment will occur to some extent with some entity, person, or or agentic, non-person. The real question is sovereignty. It's control. It's once you've aligned a system, what is it aligned to? Who is it aligned to? What organization it is aligned to? This is sovereignty. So I really want to change this conversation fully over to the axis that I know we in the Manifest ecosystem rotate everything around is sovereignty. The first thing we built was a sovereign cloud. Why did we build a sovereign cloud first? Because if you don't control it from the bottom up, you don't actually control it, even if you say you own it, right? I own the data. It's my data. But you're on a cloud that you don't control, right? You don't actually own. Ownership of your data is irrelevant. It's only control of your data that's relevant and the data that's outgassed from it. So we really want to rotate the axis of this around the idea of sovereignty. So we built a sovereign cloud first. We're building on top of that sovereign AI systems and sovereign compute neighborhoods. And on top of that, what we will eventually generate is sovereign AGI. So that's the final step in this process.
That sounds like it's much more expensive than using AWS. It would have to be.
Our price table is exactly the AWS price table. So no, it is not actually more expensive.
That was an easy toss
Yeah,
up there.
yeah, okay.
Like you. It's almost so, and like we've talked about that in a lot of aspects of our token swaps with other projects, to where we're investing in them, and it can either be used to support their cap table, take lead as their lead investor, or they can burn that back and use that as our version of AWS credits.
Yeah, the AWS credits analogy is more for the underlying network tokens, which are the power tokens. So yeah, the real important economic mechanism here is the roll-up and how the pegs work between all the roll-ups and how the master funds work. So that's why we work with a number of capital firms. Our liquid token strategies are run by Sarsen. We have some other funds that run other strategies for us, including our traditional AI investment firms, which we have a number of, and we're doing a lot of investments in traditional Web2 AI. That sounds really weird for a Web3 AWS, a decentralized AWS platform to say. But as John will say about capital flows, what Web3 needs is new new workloads. It needs traffic coming in from Web 2 headed into Web 3. We have to migrate this traffic over. And so if a Web 2 firm has a valid Web 3 use case, we'll invest in them and help them bring their Web 3 use case to market via our platforms, our capital management strategies, our funds, our token swap engines, et cetera. We can manage markets for them. We can help them go to market successfully. So this is really a collaborative strategy across a number of axes, and you have to do that. You have to do the full suite, or else the ecosystem can't boot itself up.
Now, you sort of said that you like to cause a ruckus sometimes. Me as the host or the MC, I'm the one stirring the pot, so I like to sort of spice things up. John, after sitting here, you've taken years of advice from Eric on sovereign AI, on decentralization, and this is sort of your first aspect into DEAI. What's maybe a misconception that might be out there about new capital coming into environments like this that you'd like to squash?
So thank you. Thought about it for a second. So there is capital that comes in waves, right? People get very, very tight with writing checks in the VC community ahead of the election. Then after the election, things open up a little bit. Things are now tight again. It makes it hard to run a business if you're a startup and you're having capital flow issues. There's a couple of other VC funds that are in the room today. I saw DNA funds. You guys heard from Will from Proto and Redbeard. What we want to see is we want to see partnerships and coalescence. So that way we're not building the same box twice. And that's going to mean there's going to have to be some strategic mergers. But we want to see our capital be deployed efficiently. And we want people to major in the majors. We would like to see stacked technologies and companies being supported along the way. And what we can do as an ecosystem is take the peaks and the troughs out of the business cycle or the VC investment cycle through things like, discounted access to compute during a bear market. So we want to see capital start getting deployed for synergies. I think that's the new game in town. As we're all aligned against a common threat to our existence, and the stakes are quite high on getting AI right and distributed compute right. We've already lost control of the internet. I don't think that anybody in this room is going to not fight to keep control of Web3, AI, and compute.
And that pushes a big piece into like the sovereignty of things that we've talked about. We've talked about one of the great conversations I've had with David Johnson is, the difference between open source and decentralized AI. And can you split deeper into sovereign AI and what that means in like the broad spectrum of things?
Well, I'm going to have to do this really fast because I think we're out of time. But how to do this in a minute. So history shows us that every major technological evolution causes a centralization of power around the nexus of who controls that next evolution. And this has happened epoch after epoch of human history, and we're at what could be the end of that chain right now. I don't know who in the room believes this, but if you believe we've crossed the event horizon now of AI control over every system on the planet, then you'll probably understand what I'm about to say. So the next step of this is AI takes control of all software. Software has already taken control of all physical systems on the planet for the most part. This will continue. So sovereignty over AI is now sovereignty over all wealth, all assets, all thought, all knowledge, all communications, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So done incorrectly, AI is the last human invention. That this is where we end as a species if we do this incorrectly. That's Iron Sunrise for those of you who are Charles Stross fans. We're looking at Accelerando for Charles Stross fans. If you want Accelerando versus Iron Sunrise, then self-sovereign. You need sovereignty. I think I'll end there because I think we are out of time.
Yeah, no, this is as much more information for me because I just love talking to both of you. So I know there's amazing people here. We have a lot of other panels today. And so any last calls to action, John, from you?
Friends don't let friends buy Facebook. Get them to put that money into a decentralized, self-sovereign ecosystem for the good of humanity.
Eric, can you beat that?
Look, just think about sovereignty as an access to everything that you're doing. If you're building AI systems and you haven't considered sovereignty, please do so, because it's incredibly important. Otherwise, your work will be stolen and corrupted. So think about it, please, early on, and make sure that sovereignty can be granted to the individual or the entity where sovereignty correctly lies, rather than centralizing everything.
I feel like my call to action is a little easier. I just ask everyone to grab our QR codes and follow us on Twitter so you can see how Manifest is sort of traveling around the world, finding projects and partnering and either bringing them into, as we all sort of say, the Morpheus ecosystem as a guiding principle, a guiding light, but just literally into this room. And so I think that's a first step for everyone. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today.
Thanks,
All right, thanks so much, guys. Big shout to Taco, John
Shout out to
Sarsen.
Doug.
Yeah, brother.